Hi guys, I'm Kelsey and you're watching this week's DJP TV. Coming up for you on this week's show, we have an interview of the lead designer of Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, and a review of Darkness 2. But first up, we take a look at the Ubisoft PS Vita launch showcase.
With the launch of Sony's new handheld, the PS Vita, only days away, we got the chance to pop along to Ubisoft and spend some time playing each of the 5 titles they have lined up to release alongside the console. First up is Michael Jackson The Experience, a game which had many of us attempting to emulate the King of Pop on consoles back in late 2010. The PS Vita version uses the front or back touchscreens and requires your fingers to do the dancing, using various simple gestures that include semicircle swipes and taps. Hitting each one in time to the music makes the on-screen Michael perform his now legendary dance choreography. The game includes a collection of Jackson's biggest hits, and each song uses the environments and settings from the King of Pop's classic videos. Michael Jackson The Experience certainly looks very impressive on the handheld, and featuring multiplayer, a whole bunch of unlockables and new freestyle modes, it's certainly looking to be a thriller. Next up is Lumine's Electric Symphony. I'm sure many of you have played a Lumines title in the past, but for those that haven't, then simply put, it's a rhythm puzzle game based on sound and lights. Blocks of various shapes made from 2 colours fall from the top of the screen. Lining up the blocks of the same colour will form larger blocks. A timeline scrolls across the screen from left to right in time with the music. As the line hits the larger blocks, they are removed from the play area and chime out sounds in time with the track playing. Think of it as playing Tetris in a nightclub and you're pretty much there. Puzzle games of this nature fit handheld gaming very well indeed. It's not only addictive, but also includes a great track listing which you can see in the full preview on dailyjoypad.co.uk now.
Long ago, the primordial forest, deep and mysterious, witnessed the birth of a man. A vegetable. No. A thingamajig.
One of Ubisoft's biggest titles of 2011 has also made the jump to the PS Vita, and that's Rayman Origins. If you haven't yet sampled the delights of what Rayman Origins has to offer and you're buying a PS Vita, then you really do need to pick this up at launch. Origins takes Rayman back to the 2D side-scrolling platforming that we all loved years ago. The beautiful hand-drawn visuals and detailed animations are really brought to life on the gorgeous-looking PS Vita screen. If you haven't yet added this to your pre-order list, then you really should do that right now. After you check out the rest of DJP TV, of course.
All the same, all in the midst of all kinds of stupidity, Rayman makes a troubling encounter.
If racing is more your thing, then Asphalt Injection should help satisfy your needs. Probably the weakest title out of the bunch in terms of using the full potential of the PS Vita, it does do an adequate job of being an enjoyable racer. With a whole host of modes and customization options, it should certainly keep your foot firmly on the pedal until something better comes along. Just to be clear, it's far from bad, it's just a case of being beaten to the checkered flag by all the other great Ubisoft Vita launch titles. Lastly is Dungeon Hunter Alliance, which saw a previous release on PSN, and if you've played that, you can expect the same thing here. Simply put, it's a hack and slash action RPG that has you exploring randomly generated dungeons, villages and forests as one of 3 classes, a mage, a rogue and a warrior. You can team up with friends and play through the game together in a drop-in, drop-out style, which certainly adds to the fun. The PS Vita's touchscreen can be used to zoom in and out of the action, while the back touchpad can be used for other features such as casting magic. Somehow, Dungeon Hunter Alliance feels right at home on Sony's new handheld, and is the game that will command plenty of your time. Each of these 5 great Ubisoft titles will be available on the 22nd of February, the same day you can get your hands on a shiny new Sony PS Vita. So, will you be picking up a PS Vita on launch, and what games will you be getting with it?
Lots of great looking games for you. They're all out on February 22nd along with the PS Vita, so make sure to get your pre-orders in now. Next up is our interview with the lead designer of Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning.
Hi, I'm Ian Fraser, lead designer on Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning at Big Huge Games.
We are no longer slaves to the whims of fate. I will fight. And if I die knowing that I have made the choice.
So the story of Reckoning is, well, it's very big, but the opening setup of it is that you're dead. There's this huge war happening between the mortal races of men and elves and an immortal race called the Fae. Well, it turns out normally they're very peaceful, but recently their new High King, Gadflow, has other ideas. He worships this new god being born in the east that apparently wants all mortal life to end. So this huge war starts, and in the midst of it, you die. Well, soon you find yourself resurrected, the first person to ever be brought back from the dead. And as a result, you are strangely free from destiny, free from fate, in a world that is otherwise entirely deterministic. So a lot of the story revolves around both that war and the player's role as the one person in the world who doesn't have a specific fate. So one of the cool things we do in Reckoning is that we don't have a traditional class system. Most RPGs, they have one of 2 problems. Either you have to decide your class up front, decide, 30 seconds in, I'm going to be a cleric, okay. And if it turns out that clerics or whatever that class is not all that great in that game, or simply it's not what you expected it to be in that game, then you're sad after 80 hours of RPG adventuring. The other issue is a lot of RPGs have is the other side of that spectrum, which is you can do whatever you want, except that then everybody ends up being the same kind of mushy, unclear state. You don't have a role to play in a role-playing game. Very sad. In Reckoning, we try to have sort of the best situation somewhere in between those two. You start the game, you don't have to choose a class up front. You get to play for a while, maybe half an hour or so, experiment with different play styles. Throw a ball lightning, swing a sword, use a bow, find out what you like in the context of Reckoning. Once you've gotten to have that experience, you'll level up for the first time, and you can spend your points however you want in the 3 different trees of might, finesse, and sorcery. So different ability trees. If you want to focus on one, you can do that. If you want to spread your points around between all 3 of them, you can do that too. No matter how you spend your points, the game will decide to reward you with a destiny card. And a Destiny card is basically a class that you can equip, take on yourself, and say, okay, this is what I am now. Sort of a side effect of your fateless nature in the story of the game. So at any point in the game, as you keep investing points in different trees, you can constantly be unlocking new classes and new abilities to take on yourself and make them yours. So you get that role, you get that sense of identity, but you're not locked down into it and stuck with it for the course of the whole game. The combat in Reckoning, we wanted it to be really accessible. We wanted people to be able to get into it and not have to memorize, XXYYB, extensive combos. But at the same time, we wanted to have a lot of the flash and flare and just theater of an action game, the spectacle. So we tried to kind of take a lot of those core elements of an action game, like hit reactions and kind of those brief pauses, those slowdowns in animation, a lot of the core mechanics of it, and apply those to an RPG. So at the core level, the Reckoning is a hardcore RPG. We've got all the different stat building and number tweaking you'd expect and customizing your character, but on a moment-to-moment basis, it feels more like an action game. So you can launch guys into the air and juggle them to keep them there. You have to worry about, how fast you're going to be able to hit this guy versus how fast he can hit you. It's not a matter of I hit a button and wait for my avatar to do something, but I get an instantaneous response. So it's really fluid, it's really reactive, it's very kinetic is a word we use a lot. You're moving around, you're throwing your weight around, you pull a guy to you, you hurl him in the air. It's a lot of sense of weight to the combat. It's a lot of fun. Kurt Schilling founded 38 Studios a few years back, and he's a big gamer, and he's also a big fan of R.A. Salvatore and Kurt Schilling. So he got those guys, and Kurt Schilling, well, I guess he is a fan of Kurt Schilling, but big fan of, R.A. Salvatore and Todd McFarlane. And so he got both of these guys together and said, hey, I want to make this new world, this awesome new fantasy world that nobody's seen before. And so he got the art vision from Todd and the kind of story vision from Bob, or R.A. Salvatore, who wrote the whole history of the world, and crafted Amalur. And the idea was to make an MMO in that universe. Now, a few years later, Big Huge Games is working on a single-player RPG of our own, an open-world action-adventure game, or open-world action RPG. And he saw what we were doing. THQ wanted to sell the studio, and he was like, "Hey, this is really well suited to the world of Amalur." So we started doing Reckoning at that point, using all the things we could have built up to that point at Big Huge, and that's when Kurt acquired Ken Rolston, who was with us at Big Huge. That's sort of the third visionary. Ken was a lead designer on Morrowind and Oblivion, and also developed a lot of pen and paper games back in the day, from early D&D modules to Paranoia, a board game he's well known for. So Ken being the final visionary from the game design side, we now have all these guys working together and helping us to build this. Reckoning's coming out for the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, and the PC on both Origin and Steam, as well as a box version of the game as well. It's slated for release on February 7th in North America, February 10th here in Europe.
Now is your time.
What a brilliant looking game. It's actually out today, so I'm off to get my copy now. Check out our review of Darkness 2 White Plays. I'm going to the shops.
The Darkness 2 follows on after the events of the first game and continues to portray Jackie Escalado's inner struggle to control the darkness within him. For those of you that never played the first game or don't know what the darkness is, then here is resident darkness expert Johnny Powell to tell you all about it.
Okay, you know how this story starts. In the beginning, there wasn't shit. Literally, nothing but void and darkness. And that's how the darkness liked it. It wasn't until God decreed, turn on the lights, that things got nasty. It started out small. A planet here, a sun there. You know, next thing you know, there were humans and cows and then stuff running all over the place. Needless to say, the darkness was pissed. From then till now, the darkness tore its way through the world, inhabiting one human host after another, each thinking that they were its master. But you can't own the darkness. The darkness owns you.
Thanks for that, Johnny. So, as the man said, The darkness is not something that can be controlled, and after an attempt is made on Jackie's life at the beginning of the game, Escalado is forced to unleash the darkness once again. Keen to find out who is behind the hit, Jackie soon stumbles across something more sinister than just a rival mob looking to take control. What they really want is Jackie's mojo, the darkness within him. But if they think Jackie is just going to say, "Okay then, here you go," then they're seriously mistaken. What follows is an action-packed story of revenge, brutality and one-man story of love, loss and humanity. One of the Darkness 2's unique selling points is the much talked about quad wielding system, having 2 darkness tentacles and a weapon in each hand at your disposal. The left tentacle is used to grab and throw items or enemies, while the right tentacle rips out hearts and can be used to slash at enemies. After grabbing a stunned bad guy, Jackie can command both tentacles to perform a brutal execution. At first there is a tendency to use either guns or tentacles, but once you start using them together, the unmerciful nature of the Darkness 2 really shines through. Using a combination of tentacles and weapons in creative ways to kill enemies awards you with Dark Essence. This can be spent on unlocking new powers from a talent tree system. The problem is, with so many ferocious powers to unlock, you'll be sport for choice at what bloodthirsty power to unlock first.
Tell my mother I died a good man.
Unlike the first game, you only have one Darkling this time around. However, this works much better, and you'll soon find yourself caring about the little fella much more. Not to mention the childish sense of immaturity as he proudly urinates all over the place and happily farts in the faces of downed enemies whilst whistling Rule Britannia. Visually, the Darkness 2 looks great, using a cell shading technique reminiscent of games like Borderlands. Only here, it has a much more of the Darkness graphic novel feel about it. The Darkness 2 is a game that certainly doesn't hold back. It will have you smiling maniacally with each and every kill through its entirety. Controlling dark demonic powers might be bad, but it feels so good.
You want it? Come and get it.
I didn't go to the shops because when I got to the door I realised I was dressed as a giant animal. However, when I do change into my normal clothes, I will be purchasing Darkness 2 as well because judging by low scores, it's an awesome game. That's all we have for you this week. Check out DJP TV next week, and as usual check out dailyjoypad.co.uk for all latest news, reviews and previews. Thank you for watching, bye!